Good morning. Well, I want to thank you for this opportunity to come and share with you a little bit today. My wife asked me this morning, did you sleep last night? Yeah, I slept great. Probably because I golfed a lot yesterday. Psalm 118. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I always think about that verse. It's a great verse to start with when you wake up in the morning, and the beautiful morning that we've had, and the beautiful evenings that we've had. And there's about 3 things that I wanted to try and somewhat accomplish today. One of them was that hopefully you learned something. The second thing is I hope that you're motivated to do something. And the third thing is that I don't see any of you fall asleep on me. So, giving you just a little bit of my background. Many of you probably know a little bit about this, but yesterday was my 21st anniversary, 21st year of our family here in town, and my 21st anniversary being a financial representative for Thrivent. But prior to that, for 8 years out of college, I was a school teacher, and I taught 4th grade, and I coached 3 sports, and I was the president of the Teachers Association, and I officiated high school football, and I was never home. And so after 8 years of doing that, which it was absolutely awesome, I love teaching, I love coaching, but I also knew that I needed to be a better husband and father than what my time was allowing me to be. So I had an uncle that was in the business. He was actually with Aid Association for Lutherans before we became Thrivent, and he had recruited me and twisted my arm, and I finally gave in and said, "Uncle," to my uncle. And I haven't regretted it. It's been a wonderful career, and I've built a tremendous amount of relationships with people. And we're so excited that for the last, it's almost 5 years now that my wife and I have been attending here, and we've just been overwhelmed with everybody here as well. So going back, I've got a short little video that I'm going to show, but not quite yet. I got to tee it up a little bit. So my last 4 years that I was at Newell Fonda, I was a head assistant boys basketball coach, and we went to the state tournament all 4 years in a row and came away with 3 state championships. And at one point had an 89-game winning streak. And usually when I'm visiting with some of my clients or new people that I'm meeting, and they'll say to me, "What in the world is in the water down there?" I mean, they're just successful year in and year out. And I know we're not supposed to be boastful, but boy, it does make me feel real proud for the time that I spent there and the tremendous accomplishments that we had. So back in 1991 is when they won their first boys state basketball championship. And it was the first year that those 2 communities of Newell and Fonda went together. Kind of like starting a new church. They're starting a new relationship with one another. Now, a lot of you probably know that when 2 communities go together with their schools, it doesn't always work out too well. There's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of, well, this building needs to be in this town, and this building needs to be in this town, because we all would probably agree that once you lose your school, you kind of lose your town. But that didn't happen down there, because they won a state championship in 1991, and it became the glue that bonded those 2 communities together. So it's pretty awesome. I started with the boys basketball program in 1996. I had junior high girls 6-on-6 basketball for 3 years. Now, any of you that's ever done any coaching at the Little League level or anything like that can probably imagine what it's like when you have 40 junior high girls and you're 23 years old and you're their head coach. It was a lot of fun, but I was definitely looking to move up the ladder. So, in 95 I started with the boys basketball program. They had won their championship in 91, and we were really trying to get back to a tradition which they've obviously established over the last 30 years. And that's a little bit how I want to connect all this is with traditions. Traditions at church, traditions in our home, traditions in our own lives, just like traditions in a school or in a professional sports team or in what we refer to sometimes as a dynasty. So in 1997, we won a state championship, very exciting. And the very next year, in 1998, we were ranked number 1 all year long. And there was another team called Des Moines Christian, which I won't quite go into too much of that. I'll just make this comment. For having the name Des Moines Christian, the players weren't very Christian. Let's just say that. Hit me up later and I'll tell you more details. But anyways, they were ranked number 2. And throughout the whole year, we both went undefeated. And as the way that the seeding turned out, we both made the state tournament. We had to play each other in the first round. And unfortunately, we got beat by 3. That was pretty tough. They went on and won the state championship that year. And so a lot of people, even to this day, would probably say that the state championship game was played in the first round. Well, now let's go forward one more year, 1999. Now the roles are reversed. They're ranked number 1. We're ranked number 2. We go through the whole year, undefeated. We get to the state tournament, and now we're playing in the state finals. Top 2 teams, undefeated. Been going at each other for a couple of years. And we get in the state championship game, back and forth game. Timeout. 11 seconds left. We have the ball. 52-52. Let's see if we can play the video.
Carlton. The problem there is you got the ball.
There it is.
One more time. And they like what they see early on. Newell Fonda makes it look easy, roughing up State.
Fonda has won the Class 1A title.
3-pointer at the buzzer. I get goosebumps every time I see that. Justin Lyman, the gentleman that shot that shot, is actually a police officer for the town of Newell right now. And he was probably from here to the baptismal fount in front of the head coach and myself when he made that shot. Probably still to this day, I don't think I've jumped as high as I did at that moment. So, but it was just unbelievably awesome. We turned around the very next year in 2000 and also made the state championship and then beat Rock Valley in double overtime. So quite an amazing run. But how I want to try and connect this is just, how do you build a tradition? How did Newell Fonda, how have they built a tradition? Well, there's about 4 things that I would say which can really parallel with whether it's church, whether it's our personal lives, whether it is work, our families. Number 1, they've had great coaches that have stayed there. And a lot of times at our smaller schools, when you're a really good coach as a younger coach, you want to move up the ladder. They've had coaches that have stayed there. Now, we've been very fortunate and blessed from the beginning of faith up until the end of last month. We had a pastor that stayed here. And in my opinion, he was a Hall of Fame pastor. Just like having 4 Hall of Fame coaches down at Newell Fonda. There's not very many schools that can say they have 4 Hall of Fame coaches in a small school. I mean, that's incredible. So the next thing is, they've created an atmosphere that promotes positive things going forward. And the younger kids, back when I taught the 4th graders that were 10 years old, they looked up to those high school kids and they said, I want to be just as good as they are. What do I got to do? It takes time, it takes work, it takes dedication, it takes effort. But some of you might remember I did a children's message probably about a year ago, and I had the easel up here, and there was a big hill drawn in the middle, and there's a ball sitting at the top. And that ball can go one of two directions. It can roll down the hill in a negative way. It can roll down the hill in a positive way. And for some situations, such as what they experienced down there, the ball has been rolling down the hill in a very positive way. Do we have our ball rolling in a very positive way here? I'd like to think so. Does that mean we need to just kind of sit on our laurels and not contribute or just show up and attend and not be a part of all the great things that are going on? No, absolutely not. We have to participate. We have to work together. It takes a team effort. Now, another thing that's happened, a lot of their former players that I coached have come back and they've stuck around and they're raising their families there. Give you an example of this. The girls program won their second consecutive girls state basketball title this past winter, and they won their second, not consecutive, but second state softball title this summer. On the state softball team, 5 out of the 9 starters are daughters of the players that I coached. Now, that makes me feel a little old, but they have. So they've come back because they know what it's like to raise a family in that community and in that town and how everybody has each other's back. And they want their families to have that. And we can have that here too. And in many ways we do. When we talk about traditions, what are your own traditions? Your own personal traditions. Think about that a little bit. It might be Christmas, family traditions at Christmas. Maybe it's the 4th of July. Maybe it's birthdays. By the way, I did tell Larry and Cindy I was going to give them a shout out today because I saw them out for supper on Friday night. Happy birthday. I'm going to make Larry feel old right here now because when I played college baseball at Buena Vista, I was a pitcher. Larry did my baseball games, so that ought to tell you how he should feel at this point. But we won't talk about that, right, Larry? So think about those traditions. Maybe I need to get to work at a certain period of time. I have a tradition of being the first one to work. That would be my dad. 50-some years at one place. Probably never got beat to work by anybody. And probably we never went home before anybody else either. So that's what my brother and sister and I experienced was dedication, how important that is to the things that we do. Our call team is going through a process right now. And in the beginning, I'll be quite honest with you, I didn't realize how much time it would take, how much effort it would be, and how many hours would be spent. But it's been a privilege. And hopefully, we're getting close to a point of being able to recommend somebody to take over the next chapter here. And we're excited about that. Nothing's set in stone. We're still interviewing candidates. But, we're excited about that opportunity going forward. When I think of faith, I think of a question that came up in the very beginning of our call team process. And we asked, what are the strengths of Faith Lutheran? I'm going to remind you of what the answers to those were. I went back and looked it up. Number 1, most regarded answer for that question. This is what everybody put. Welcoming, friendly, family-oriented atmosphere. And you can kind of see how that is when immediately about 10 people jumped to action a little while ago. Lay-led volunteerism. We've got a lot of people willing to pitch in. And I think that's very valuable. But you know what? It always takes more hands. I don't know about the rest of you when it comes to church, But I think we have something incredible here on the north end of town to where we can be this really beacon of light throughout the whole area of northwest Iowa. And I think those things are possible, but it can't be done with a few. It has to be done with everybody doing their part. After all, that's what it says of our mission on the wall. Inviting all people to faith, come and worship, go and work. I think that's a great message. The third one was being Bible-based teaching. Obviously on one of the top priority lists on our call team when we're trying to find a candidate. Here's others. Communion. Important part of our faith life. Sunday school, vacation Bible school, and who can forget donuts? We all enjoy those. One of our first, when we started the process of the call team, and it was kind of an aha moment for me because I started thinking about it, but a gentleman came, I think his name was Perry Froling, and he was with the LC MC, and he came in and he told us, he says, I think you're the only church that has automatic opening doors. But you think about that. What does that signal? What does that signal to, and we have some visitors today, what does that maybe signal to you? We're open. Our hearts and our arms are open to help you. I think that's incredible. I think that's an incredible message. We got sliding open doors. This morning I told Greg Lear, he was helping a lady in the church, and I just went up and I said, Greg, let me get the door for you. He's giving me the same look now that he did then too. So I want to talk just very quickly. I'm going to move through this kind of fast. A little bit of trivia. So this is the audience participation. See if you can figure out who this is. Because athletes today, they really make me wonder. We get all the pounding on the chest, me, I, my, instead of really being thankful for all those around them that helped them get to maybe where they're at. Or every time they do something. Well, maybe they are doing it as an honor to God. But sometimes, and Radina talked about this, sometimes it feels a little hypocritical that it's for show. So I always kind of question that a little bit. But these are a couple athletes that I admired growing up, and I think they fit, their message that they portrayed really fits well today. So those of you younger attendees, I won't call you children, young adults, if you're playing sports, this is where I want you to listen up. Yes, Jackson. This is where I want you guys to listen up, okay? I've seen him on the golf course here lately. Yeah, he's got a lot going on for him. This is awesome. So this person, let's see here, went to Oklahoma State, was a running back, spent 10 years in the NFL, got invited to the Pro Bowl all 10 years, kind of retired on his own terms, wore number 20, and was with the Detroit Lions right there. Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders. What I admired most about Barry Sanders, he wasn't a celebratory guy. Now, some of you that know me, and I'll probably get some cat calls for this, but yeah, I'm a big Vikings fan. And man, it's why I have broad shoulders, because you have to be able to take a lot of grief. And hopefully, right, Dad? Hopefully someday that championship will come. But he never celebrated. Whether he had a big run, a touchdown, didn't matter. He just went over to the official, handed him the ball, and ran to the sidelines. It wasn't about him. He didn't have to let anybody else know. They watched the play. And it reminded me always of my high school football coach. And we grew up in Eagle Grove, we were not very good. And they're still, unfortunately, they're the negative ball rolling down the hill. They're still not very good. But our high school football coach always used to say, hey, if you score a touchdown, act like you've been there before. I still remember that today. Fortunately, there was a few times that we were able to score, but not a lot. But that still resonated with me. Act like you've been there before. You don't need to showboat. You don't need to do all those things that attract attention to yourself. After all, if you're running the ball, or you're catching the ball, or whatever, that's your job, is to get in the end zone. It's not to just get there and say, look at me. Okay, I'm going to go through the next one. See if you can guess this one. Attended Cretin-Durham High School. Some of you might say, where the heck's Cretin-Durham High School? I bet you my new daughter-in-law knows where Cretin-Durham High School is because she's from Minnesota. Played his entire career with one team, and he still today is the only athlete to be named Athlete of the Year by USA Today in 2 sports. Both football and baseball, and there it is right there. Joe Mauer. Anybody ever see Joe Mauer argue with an umpire? Nope. 15 years. Never ever did I see that. He was extremely respectful. And in 2025, when he is first eligible to go into the Hall of Fame, not only for the fact that he had like 3 batting titles and, all those tremendous awards, also 4 years of high school baseball at a big high school, so you're playing a lot of stiff competition. 4 years of high school baseball, 1 strikeout. Freshman through his senior year. Isn't that amazing? And he also was a quarterback at Cretin-Durham and was highly, highly recruited to play quarterback in college as well, but he didn't. He chose baseball. Probably was a pretty wise choice. But yeah, Joe Mauer. Never saw him argue with an umpire. Larry, would that have been great to have players and coaches that didn't argue with you? Where were they? Yeah, that's good. So, I'm going to try to wrap this up here quick. We're a relatively young church, 10 plus years. Hopefully soon we'll begin a new chapter, which we're all really excited about. And I know our call team is excited about some of the candidates that we've been looking at. But I want you to think of our church a little bit like something probably very few of us in here have ever done. Think of it a little bit like getting on a surfboard and catching a wave. And you paddle out, you're looking out over the horizon. Ooh, that might be a good one. And it's coming closer, and that momentum is building and building and building and building. And you get that surfboard turned around, and in order to climb on that wave, you got to paddle like the Dickens. I don't know this because I've never done it. I'm just telling you what I saw on TV, which most of you are probably doing too. Bear with me a minute. I'm trying to build a little bit here, you can tell. So you hop on that surfboard, and man, you're riding that wave. And everybody else around you, they see the same wave, and they're hopping on that wave too. Isn't that awesome? That's what we have here. That's the wave that we have here, that we've built now for 10 years. Where's the next big wave going to take us? I don't know. But they're out there. That next big wave is coming. And I hope all of you can jump on board with me. Last thing, in closing, 1 Corinthians 11, verses 1 and 2. This is Paul's letter to the Corinthians. Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. I praise you for remembering me in everything and for holding to the traditions just as I passed them on to you. This is the word of the Lord. Amen.